Back in the not too distant past of 2010, I was trying to play Dungeons and Dragons. Around that time, my belief of D&D was that it was just a bunch of nerds in their mother's basements who talked in ye olde English and wore costumes. I was not into high fantasy, so elves, dwarves, and hobbits didn't really entice me. That all changed when the Penny Arcade webcomic did a series of podcasts to promote D&D 4th edition. A friend of mine was into them, but I couldn't really get past the Lord of the Rings vibes, and then I found out about Dark Sun. Instead of running their usual game, they ran one in the Dark Sun setting, a world where there was no gods and psychic powers were easy to come by. The world was a dangerous desert wasteland where survival was a key theme. Instead of knights and mages, you had gladiators and scions. Seriously, I was hooked. And they advertised that Dark Sun would be played in stores that summer. So I found a game store within walking distance of my apartment and dragged my roommate with me, because if I was going to demote myself from geek to dork, I'm taking someone else down with me. What I didn't know was that the game had been running for weeks already, and I was joining 2 sessions away from the end of the Dark Sun event. The dungeon master at the time was this guy Chris, and he was awesome. He even paid for our dinner at the local Chinese food place. Little did I know that when I was handed the pre-generated character named Shakira, Shakir, I would forever be wanting to play a four-armed humanoid mantis that could throw people around with his mind. I still remember that day, and this was the original map we played on. Chris modified it a bit to make it more interesting by swapping out an environmental hazard at D with our starting area so we'd have to cross over it. Our mission involved ambushing a group of lizard men, also known as Susurans in Dark Sun. I jumped onto the top of this cliff on the right here and got into a one-on-one fight with a warrior. We were trading blows, and Chris described how each hit landed or missed, and I would respond back with my guy giving up on his staff and switching to his wrist blades on his secondary arms, and then telekinetically pushing the warrior off the cliff. The game ended with me pouncing onto a fleeing lizard man. It felt epic. Looking back, we played one encounter for 2 to 3 hours, but in the nostalgic haze of my youth, that was well worth it. And that was my first experience with Dungeons and Dragons. I learned that D&D is more than just elves and hobbits. D&D has other settings for people who don't like medieval fantasy. I also learned that making combat feel narrative is so much better than just hit, miss in a featureless room or empty field. Most importantly, Chris was a great teacher, and having that helped a lot. 4th edition was notorious for being really rules heavy and difficult to get into, but with the right game master and group of people, you can bring anyone into the hobby. But that wasn't my first time playing D&D. That was my first time I played D&D successfully. I played before in a failed campaign of 3.5. It's a story involving game design mishaps and mistakes, and a bit of inter-party betrayal. But that's a story for another time. If you liked my story, please subscribe and hit the like button. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a good one.